Book 9, Part 2 of Ovid's Metamorphoses. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Drew Altschul. Metamorphoses by Publius Ovidius Naso. Translated by Brooks Moore. Book 9, Part 2. Even Atlas felt the weight of heaven increase, but King Eurystheus, still implacable, vented his baffled hatred on the sons of the great hero. Then the Argive mother, Alcmena, spent and anxious with long cares, the burden of her old age and her fears, could pass the weary hours with Iole, in garrulous narrations of his worth, his mighty labours, and her own sad days. Iole, by command of Hercules, had been betrothed to Hylas, and by him was gravid, burdened with a noble child. And so to Iole Alcmena told this story of the birth of Hercules. Ah, may the gods be merciful to you and give you swift deliverance in that hour when, needful of all help, you must call out for Eilithyia, the known goddess of all frightened mothers in their travail, she whom Juno's hatred overcame and made so dreadful against me. For when my hour of bearing Hercules was very near, and when the 10th sign of the zodiac was traversed by the sun, my burden then became so heavy that the one I bore so large, you certainly could tell that Jove must be the father of the unborn child. At last, no longer able to endure, ah me, a cold sweat seizes on me now, only to think of it renews my pains. 7 days in agony, as many nights, exhausted in my dreadful misery, I stretched my arms to heaven, and invoked Lucina and 3 Nyxian deities, the guardians of birth. Lucina came, but before then she had been pledged to give my life to cruel Juno. While Lucina sat in the altar near the door and listened with her right knee crossed over her left knee, with fingers interlocked, she stopped the birth, and in low muttered tones she chanted charms which there prevented my deliverance. I fiercely struggled, and insane with pain shrieked vile revilings against Jupiter. I longed for death, and my delirious words then should have moved the most unfeeling rocks. The Theban matrons, eager to help me, stood near me while they asked the aid of heaven. And there was present of the common class my maid Galanthis, with her red gold hair, efficient and most willing to obey her worthy character, deserved my love. She felt assured Juno unjustly worked some spell of strong effect against my life. And when this maid beheld Lucina perched so strangely on the altar, with her fingers inwoven on her knees and tightly pressed together, in a gripping finger-comb, she guessed that jealous Juno was the cause. Quick-witted, in a ringing voice this maid cried out, "Congratulations! All is well! Alcmena is delivered, a fine child so safely brought forth, her true prayers approved." Lucina, who presides at birth, surprised, leaped up, unclenched her hands as one amazed. Just as her hands unfastened and her knees were parted from their stricture, I could feel the bonds of stricture loosen, and without more labour was delivered of my child. 'Tis said Galanthus laughed and ridiculed the cheated deity, and as she laughed the vixen goddess caught her by the hair, and dragging her upon the ground while she was struggling to arise, held her, and there transformed both of her arms to animal forelegs. Her old activity remained, her hair was not changed, but she did not keep her maiden form, and ever since that day, because she aided with deceitful lips, her offspring are brought forth through the same mouth. Changed to a weasel, she dwells now with me. When she had ended the sad tale, she heaved a deep sigh in remembrance of her tired, beloved servant, and her daughter-in-law, Iole, kindly answered in these words, "O my dear mother, if you weep because of her who was your servant, now transformed into a weasel, how can you support the true narration of my sister's fate, which I must tell to you, although my tears and sorrows hinder and forbid my speech? Most beautiful of all Oechalian maids was Dryope, her mother's only child, for you must know I am the daughter of my father's second wife. She is not now a maid, because, through violence of him who rules at Delphi and Delos, she was taken by Andromon, who since then has been accounted happy in his wife. There is a lake surrounded by sweet lawns and circling beauties, where the upper slope is crowned with myrtles and fair sunny groves. Without a thought of danger, Dryope in worship one day went to gather flowers. Who hears has greater cause to be indignant, delightful garlands for the water nymphs, and in her bosom carried her dear son, not yet a year old, whom she fed for love. Not far from that dream lake, in moisture, grew a lotus, beautiful in purple bloom, the blossoms promising its fruit was near. At play with her sweet infant, Dryope plucked them as toys for him. I, too, was there, eagerly also I put forth my hand, and was ready to secure a spray, when I was startled by some drops of blood found falling from the blossoms which were plucked, and even the trembling branches shook in dread. Who wills the truth of this may learn from all quaint people of the land, who still relate the story of Nymph Lotus. She, they say, while flying from the lust of Priapus, was transformed quickly from her human shape into this tree, though she has kept her name. But ignorant of all this, Dryope, alarmed, decided she must now return. So having first adored the hallowed nymphs, upright she stood, and would have moved away, but both her feet were tangled in a root. There, as she struggled in its tightening hold, she could move nothing save her upper parts, and growing from that root, live bark began to gather slowly upward from the ground, spreading around her till it touched her loins. In terror, when she saw the clinging growth, she would have torn her hair out by the roots, but alas, when she clutched at it, her hands were filled with lotus leaves grown up from her changed head. Alas, her little son, Amphissus, felt his mother's bosom harden to his touch, and no life-stream refreshed his eager lips. And while I saw your cruel destiny, O dear sister, and could give no help, I clung to your loved body, and around the growing trunk and branches, hoping so to stop their evil growth, and I confess, endeavored there to hide beneath the bark. And oh, Andromon and her father then appeared to me while they were sadly seeking for Dryope, so there I had to show the lotus as it covered her, and they gave kisses to the warm wood, and prostrate fell upon the ground, and clung to the growing roots of their new darling tree, transformed from her. Dear sister, there was nothing of yourself remaining but your face, and I could see your tears drop slowly on the trembling leaves which had so marvellously grown on you, and while your lips remained uncovered, all the air surrounding echoed your complaint. If oaths of wretched women can have force, I swear I have not merited this fate, though innocent to suffer punishment. And if one word of my complaint is false, I pray I may soon wither, and my leaves fall from me as in blight, and let the axe devote me wretched to the flames. But take this infant from my branches to a nurse, and let him often play beneath this tree, his mother always. Let him drink his milk beneath my shade. Then he has learned to talk. Let him salute me, and in sorrow say, "In this tree trunk my mother is concealed." Oh, let him dread the fate that lurks in ponds. Let him often play beneath his tree, and let him be persuaded every shrub contains the body of a goddess. Ah, farewell, my husband, sister, and farewell, my father. If my love remain in you, remember to protect my life from harm, so that the pruning knife may never clip my branches, and protect my foliage from the browsing sheep. I cannot stoop to you. Oh, if you love me, lift your lips to mine, and let me kiss you, if but once again, before this growing lotus covers me. Lift up my darling infant to my lips. How can I hope to say much more to you? The new bark now is creeping up my neck, and creeping downward from my covered brow. Ah, do not close my live eyes with your hands. There is no need of it, for growing bark will spread and darken them before I die. Such were the last words her poor smothered lips could utter, for she was so quickly changed, and long thereafter the new branches kept the warmth of her lost body so transformed. And all the while that Iole told this, tearful in sorrow for her sister's fate, Alcmena